Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast. We're so grateful that you're tuning in today as we are talking all about vision. We've got Tom Corcoran in the studio today, and I'm excited for you to hear about some vision that he and the leadership team at Nativity cast back in 1997 and how it relates to what we're doing with Rebuilt today. And if that doesn't tell you just how important vision casting is, I don't know what will convince you. Join us inside the episode and we'll tell you more. Well, hey, Tom, welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast.
Thanks, Melissa. Always good to be with you. Good to talk about skiing. We were talking about so
I know.
we always find something to talk about as we're getting ready to come on. So
we do.
It was fun.
Do. I wonder how many, we're still in this winter time. I wonder how many of our parish leaders out there are taking any Sabbath time and are going to go do some skiing with their families.
Yep, that's what we were talking about. Yep.
Yeah, so we know that Sabbath is important, but we also know that vision is really important in a parish too. So Tom, can you tell us why having a clear vision is so important for parish growth and renewal?
Well, I think vision's a word that intimidates some people because it seems like businessy or like something. I'm not a visionary, but vision's just I think everyone has a vision. Everyone has an idea of what they would like to be better about your personal life, about your church, right? And that's what vision is. It's a preferred future. It's a picture of what could be and should be, but doesn't yet exist. And so, if you want to move into the future with direction and a clear purpose, you need a vision of where you want to actually go. And the clearer it is to begin within the leader, but then the clearer the leader articulates that to other people, the better for the whole parish and church. And so, vision's absolutely crucial.
Now, we might have some parishes here who don't have one yet. So what are the risks for parishes that operate without a clearly defined vision, and how can they begin to change course?
Yeah, and I think you do have a vision. Everybody has a vision. It hasn't been articulated yet or hasn't been clarified as a good thing. So, but I think, you want to clarify it as much as you can because people's visions might be different and you want to get everybody on the same page. So, What a vision does, I'm trying to remember the book, Leading Change, I think, by John Cotter's the book. He talks about how vision does three things. And let me see if I can remember the three things are. In a talk, I talk about this. Here are two or the three at least that are coming back to me. It clarifies direction, it motivates people, and it gets everybody moving in the same direction. So good. That came back to me, right? It clarifies the direction for people. It motivates people to take action, but it also gives them the direction and what to move so that you are bringing people's energy and efforts together rather than pulling apart in siloed different ways.
Oh, that's so good. Well, let's talk about developing this vision a little bit because some people might not know how to do that. So let's start with, maybe you can share what are the steps a parish can take to develop a vision that's rooted in their parish mission?
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of this people think, well, we've got to come up with some grand vision statement or it's got to be something we put on the wall. No, we just actually did put it on the wall at Nativity, but that was many years later. I think, let me just dial that down and then just be clearer about getting, especially your core team together and agreement about where you're going. And again, somewhat that's an annual plan, and we talk about that, and that's essentially what it is. That's a vision for the year ahead. Your goals are a vision for the year ahead, but vision is bringing a small group of people together, the pastor, a couple people saying, where do we want to be in a few years? And at least having a conversation around that. And I think one of the things I would say to people is try on a couple different things. One, get as concrete as you can in the sense of walk around your church. What do you see in your mind? I try to encourage people, think, what do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? Maybe what do you taste? What are your tastes? Use your senses. That a vision is a concrete image, and the more concrete you can be, the better. So, just getting anything out, I think, is good and helpful.
Well, I love one thing that you said, how you put the vision on the wall, but that wasn't until years later, right? You didn't start out with this, beautifully crafted vision that you then put on the wall for everybody to look at. Can you share a little bit about how the vision changed over the years at Church of the Nativity and evolved, and how any sort of external inspiration played a role in shaping it?
It's interesting, Melissa, when I looked at your questions, when I first came here, back in the late 90s, that's 97, pretty early on, we went on a retreat to Gettysburg. And it was me, Father Michael, another woman, a woman, Carol Passione, the three of us. And we went on this retreat to Gettysburg. And it was a pretty cool concept. I don't think they're in business anymore. But this company, they did it to us as a church because Father Michael's sister had done some business with them with, I think it was with MCI. Again, dating myself there. That company doesn't exist anymore. But they did it for us kind of at a break because they thought, oh, maybe we'll get into the nonprofit world. And they'd been doing it for business. It was a pretty cool thing. Sorry for this digression. They would take you to the place, like historical place, talk about the history, historical figures, and then have you do something. So anyway, we went to Gettysburg. They talked about Abraham Lincoln and his vision of keeping the Republic together during the Civil War. And you could craft a vision statement. And they were kind of big. It was only 5 to 7 words, really small. But here's what it is. I remember it to this day. So here you go. Our vision was to be an exemplary model of an American Catholic parish.
Oh.
And so it's really cool. I don't even think, again, we knew what we meant by that. But, hey, can we be a model of a Catholic parish that others could follow? And now here we are. This is 25 years later, and I think that's what we're trying to be. That's what Rebuilt is. So that's where I kind of think, like, sometimes with vision, like, we put pressure on ourselves, but I think that's like we didn't know what we were saying then.
Right.
But I look back in all these years, I'm like, that's what we've become. And the vision's morphed and changed over the year. And I don't think we held on to that for many years, but as I said, I still remember it and crafting that vision. So I think that's just started for us and planted a seed that I think that's coming to fruition hopefully now.
That's incredible. Well, first, I mean, I can get excited talking about Gettysburg and Lincoln and all of the different leadership pieces we can learn from that. But let's talk about, we're not taking everybody to Gettysburg to go learn, but how about when they come, just a little further from Gettysburg, a little, we're going to be below the Mason-Dixon line here when we bring them to the Rebuilt Conference. So how can parish leaders draw inspiration for their vision by coming to an event like the Rebuilt Conference in June?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're coming from far away, Gettysburg's not far, so you could go see Gettysburg if you want to add it onto your trip. How will the conference help people get a vision? Obviously our theme is Can You Imagine? And so that's part of the idea is we want people imagining what could be and should be at their parish. And so through our breakouts, we'll be talking things like that. Through the main sessions, we'll be talking a little bit about vision and encouraging vision that hopefully sometimes just seeing things in action here, for us, it was going to Saddleback and seeing what was there gave us a vision of what could be and should be at Nativity. So again, we experienced people who were on fire for their faith and so engaged in the life of their parish and were so friendly and warm and welcoming. And we thought, why can't we have this? We wanted that. So hopefully too, the experience of just coming will help you to imagine things or see things in a new way. And so, and especially, if people come to the conference, there might be some things, well, I wouldn't do that. I'm not sure I like that. That's exactly great places to push in because I think that will help you imagine something different than you wouldn't have if you had not experienced something different than the norm for you.
Right. Oh, that's so good. You know what? I wouldn't have even thought about that. They might say, "Oh, that lighting, that might be a bit much for my parish, but here's a different idea that might work." I wouldn't have even thought about maybe things that, they don't necessarily like. That's a great point.
And I think too, just even stepping back, just to add to that too, and hopefully it spurs conversations among teammates of, we could be doing this, that would work here, that won't work here, but more that could work here. Let's green hat, yellow hat. If you've ever done the 6 thinking hats, don't black hat, which is shutting things down. Come with an attitude of green hat, yellow hat, optimism, thinking everything's possible, right?
Yeah. Well, and you bring up another great point is that they get so much more out of it when they come with their whole team too. One person being there by themselves is different than when you've got a team of like 5 or more people and you're all going to different breakout sessions and learning different things. And then, you're asking each other questions and, oh my gosh, did you see how they do that? Did you see this? Like, they're all just sharing in this, and then that's going to help them come together with an even bigger vision.
Yeah, and just stepping back from the day-to-day is so helpful, right?
Yes. Well, let's talk about some practical ways once they come up with this vision, how can they effectively communicate this vision to staff, volunteers, and then parishioners?
I want to back up a little bit though when coming up with your vision or thinking about your vision, because it was in your questions and I forget and I wanted to share this one thought, is that also in whatever vision you're imagining, I think there's some things that are in your church, as I said, like walk around your church, look at the kids programs and imagine it full, or imagine your church full, right? Those are some visions. But also I think into your vision, what is the larger impact outside your parish that you want to have? Make sure that's part of your vision as well. So, part of what's become part of our vision at Nativity is influencing other churches. That became part of it because that's part of our story, was being influenced by other churches. And so we want to help influence and help other churches. We were served by other churches. We want to serve other churches. That might be part of your story too, but so for example, I was thinking though, where are you located? That might be an impact. And we, for a while we worked with the parish in Hollywood. I mean, if you can impact Hollywood, that's a pretty good vision. Like, or I know Ann Arbor, Michigan. We've talked to a parish there, and they're influencing the University of Michigan. So academics, or if you're near, if you were in New York, right, New York City, and you impact the business world, like how is the people your impact going to impact a larger world? Just to give that some thought in your vision as well. So sorry, I just did want to say that. Now, once you communicate it, yeah, sorry. Now, then you're right. How do you communicate it to people? And first of all, I think there's just to understand you got to communicate it over and over and over again. There's saying that vision leaks. In other words, like everybody, you fill up people with what your vision is. You talk to them and communicate about it, but then they got to go and live their lives, and they forget what you said. And it's like a bucket, with holes in it. It just leaks out. So, but communication is number one. Andy Stanley has a little thin book called Making Vision Stick. So one is just communicating it over and over again and a commitment to that. Two is then making it stick through living out personally, right? That we have to model it, working on our phraseology, our phrases and our terms that we use to describe it. Another way we communicate it is by pointing out when we see it. That's the hard thing about vision is people don't see it, right? They don't know what it is. It doesn't exist yet. So how can they know it? But when you get a glimpse of it, make a big deal about that. Like, if you get an email where somebody brought a unchurched friend to church and they loved the church, like this is what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
And share that in a homily. So a lot of it is communicate, so you said, how do you communicate it? It's repetition over and over again. You communicate it through your life. You communicate it by having phrases that stick, sharing wins and stories. Those are some of the ways. Sorry, it's a little bit like a fire hydrant there, but yeah, those are some of the thoughts I have on that.
That's just sometimes how we share information. We get so excited, it just all comes out.
Yeah, and when you get an email that is capturing the vision, again, that is gold. Share that. I have a little file I call wins, that, and even I just do that for my own encouragement. If someone sends me a nice email, or not like a nice email, but like, hey, this is a way the church impacted me. I just put that in my email, and we encourage staff to do that too. So then, when there's a need to communicate vision or opportunity, we have them available.
Such a great idea. Now, we're talking about people at different levels of involvement, and you even took it a step bigger and you said, how does your parish what's your vision for your parish involvement in the community and beyond? So this is huge. Now, how do we ensure that this vision resonates with people at all levels of involvement? So, you're going to have casual attendees who maybe come once a month to your volunteers that are volunteering every single weekend.
Yeah, of course. And vision's multi-layered, by the way. So it's usually more than one vision, right? If a church is bigger, we have a vision to influence other churches. We have a vision to make an impact in Baltimore and beyond. We have a vision to, again, reach unchurched in our community. So but people are going to buy in at different levels, obviously. So your volunteers, one of the things we try to do in a huddle each week, we meet before they serve. If you're on the greeting team or the host team, our parking team, is share a little vision. We share that vision in some way. Someone's coming to church today for the first time. Point out some of the same things I shared. Point out a win. Point out a scripture. Remind them that Jesus came to seek and save the lost, and some lost people are coming to church today. So for your volunteers, here's what I would say is every time, especially volunteers, or anytime you send out something to donors, there should be some little drip of vision. And by, again, I don't mean it just means a little thing of here's what we're trying to achieve. And it's a couple of sentences. So again, I think people think vision, it's huge, it's big, and it is, but it gets boiled down to, for example, I have to write we want to send out to Rebuilt donors their statement, right? Their impact, you have to do that for the IRS.
Right.
But the worst thing in the world would be just to send them, this is what you gave last year. No, you got to write a note that says, thanks so much for what you're doing. We serve this many leaders and this many parishioners are being impacted, or this percentage of people, or tell a little story. Let me tell you about, a parish, and write a little paragraph. And so that's what I mean. But so I guess it's that mentality that every time I communicate, you want to have vision in. So, from the pulpit, you're not going to communicate vision all the time. But again, if there's something you're really trying to work on. So, for example, I remember when we were trying to do small groups and build up a small group community, I would encourage Father Michael during this times, mention small groups. I don't care how you mention it. I was in my small group the other day, right? That's it. But just we're trying to create a culture of that. So, I think it is looking at every level of communication you have, from the pulpit to whatever you send out to donor letters, to when you gather your volunteers, whatever is on your heart about the vision of the church. That's what you want to be, dripping it in constantly.
So good. Well, I want to talk a little bit about engaging people in the vision. And this is where I think a lot of parishes are going to have questions. And this is about, how do we engage our staff and volunteers when we're in the process of bringing the vision to life, when there's resistance or skepticism? And I know things weren't always easy there and aren't always easy there. So maybe you can share kind of how you worked through that in the past.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, there's always going to be some resistance, some skepticism. And I think it kind of comes to, it'll be some people that have that black hat thinking, so to speak. Well, that can't possibly happen. To me, I really do think, I've heard it said there's three kind of groups of people that are talking. There are people who are with you and on board with you. There are people in the middle that are not sure. And there's people that are just the critics. And I think the helpful thing is, don't talk to your critics.
Yeah.
Right. They're not going to listen anyway. So if you have that person, I guess, and how do you figure out the critic? Well, it depends. So if you share, if you listen to them and then try to point them in the direction and they actually come with you, then they're not a critic. They're somebody who might be a skeptic. I would say a skeptic in a good way. I'm not sure I believe yet, but you give them some information and they come along. People who are just naysayers are going to criticize you. Don't spend a lot of energy on them. They'll be around, but if you and kind of what gets rewarded gets repeated. If you keep talking to that group, what happens to that group in the middle? They move towards the naysayers, right? The skeptics, I'll put the skeptics in the middle category. They'll move to the critics, and you don't want that. Talk to the people who need to be convinced. That's okay, but I also think, again, coming the attitude is believing you're going to move them, right? Believing they're going to do that. And, Jesus said to the apostles, right, when you go into a town, preach the gospel, share the good news. And that's what vision is about the good news. The good news of the kingdom is that Jesus won. He rose from the dead. In Jesus, we are more than conquerors. We serve a God who is a God of love, and we get to share the God. Jesus said, go out to all the earth. We are on the winning side. So that's where we are, that mentality. And we are acting out of that. So going back to, what Jesus said is, when someone does not listen to you, shake the dust off.
Yes.
So when you come across the critic, just shake it off. They're not coming with you.
Right.
My image is this: you just start moving forward. And again, tailor your message to the people who need to hear and be convinced a bit.
Yep.
And then start moving. And the good people of goodwill will move for you and with you. And the people that are skeptics, God bless them, or critics, again, to use the language I've kind of created here in the last 3 minutes. The critics, they won't come with you, but that's okay. They'll either fall away or they'll dwindle in number. So what my biggest thing is we didn't focus on convincing the critics. We went for the people that were maybe a little skeptical but willing to move if we said the right things, or we could share the right wins and help them see the future.
Right. When you were saying all of this, Tom, it made me think of the story that you and Father Michael like to tell about the first time you had suggested that you would do Christmas Eve Mass at the Cow Palace. Mm-hmm. And there was someone who said, I will pool my entire donation if you move forward with this. And rather than spending so much time trying to convince this one person, the two of you kept working forward and dripping the rest of this vision and casting this vision. And when you moved forward, God still took care of you. You had somebody write a check that cost the entire amount of what Christmas Eve Mass cost at the Cow Palace.
That's right, yeah. So trust God with that. Or when we did 40 Days of Purpose and we had purpose-driven life and we gave out the books, people would walk around the tent. People would, even though you're supposed to walk through the tent, like we put it, like you had to go through the tent. People do all they could to get around the tent. Okay, you can get mad about it and it kind of irks them, but it's like, all right, they didn't want to go. That's okay.
Yep.
But focus on, we got 1,000 people who did want to go with us and move in that direction. So again, painted a picture of a church of small groups and a community, and they came. So, I think it's just focus your energy and efforts on people that will move, not on the naysayers or the critics.
So good. Well, let's move into talking about sustaining the vision a little bit. And we know that parish life can get a little bit busy, right? It can be a little bit demanding. What strategies can parishes use to keep their vision alive and continue working that vision amidst all of those day-to-day demands of the ministry?
Well, again, I think so much about what Rebuilt is that we're trying to help you do that in creating the vision in what you're already doing, right? So if you look at our model of, create a great weekend experience, right? Parish is already doing that.
They are.
And I would encourage that to be part of your vision.
But they're doing it.
Yeah, where you are, but that's not something you do. That's not ancillary to what you do. It's what you do. You're already doing the weekend, right? So put some energy and effort to do it better, right? And when it comes so what I would say is your vision should not be far from what you're already doing. Again, should there be changes you need to make? Absolutely. But integrated into your day-to-day or integrated into what you do. Don't make it like it's not out here. Your vision, again, first of all, it lives in you. If it should live in you as a leader, all right? So it hopefully it burns in you. That's probably the biggest thing in keeping the vision hot for yourself. Because if you have a passion about something, you don't forget it, right? You don't, I don't forget to watch the Eagles, right? I'm passionate about the Eagles. Like I don't forget, the Eagles were on. I didn't know, bad example maybe, but so if you love football and the Super Bowl's on, I forgot to watch the Super Bowl. No.
Right.
Anyway, so I think one inside you too, but bringing it into your normal weekly calendar and routines, and making sure that the vision you're painting, again, there's already so much going on in the life of the parish. You should be, your day-to-day or your week-to-week routines should be serving that vision. It's not something out there. It's something you've brought into the rhythm of your life as a parish.
So good. And yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't forget to do the things that you're passionate about or that you're already doing. They are already doing a lot of these things. So we're not saying now you need to do all of these extra things on top of it.
Right. Yeah, you already are trying to find volunteers, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And probably one of your vision is to have an awesome core of volunteers. Okay, well, bring that into what you're doing and create systems and structures around that are going to help you do what you're already doing. And need to get volunteers. You're already asking for money. Okay, bring in the vision of how you do that better. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I love these different examples you're bringing up because a lot of these are actually breakout sessions at conference. So, when people come to conference, they're going to be inspired. They're going to help this is going to help them cast that vision when they come and get to learn from both subject matter experts that have led this change at Nativity and at Rebuilt, but then also from some of our partner parish leaders who are maybe only a few years ahead of them, where, Tom, you've been at this for 25 plus years. Some of our partner parishes have been with us just for a couple of years, but they've made such tremendous progress and some great results and have awesome stories to tell that these parishes that come to conference can learn so much from them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think it's always good to have some people way far ahead of you, but it's always good too to have people just a couple steps ahead of you and that kind of thing. So yes. You can learn from both, but often the most practical action steps are people maybe that are a step or two ahead of you and just where were you just were more recently.
Yeah.
I didn't say that quite right, but anyway, hopefully people got my idea from that.
Hopefully everybody else knew too.
Or where you were in a recent season. Anyway, where you are now in a recent season. All right. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Well, as we wrap it up, I just want to know if you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway about vision, why now is the time to get started. What would it be?
I just would, my biggest thing, again, first is not to be intimidated by it, because I think vision's already in you. Like, again, I'm like, I'm not a visionary. Everybody's a visionary because you have a something you want to see happen. So, I think it's like, don't overcomplicate it. Like I would even say take 5 minutes after this is over. Now you might be driving in the car or doing dishes or whatever you're doing. But if you could just 10 minutes in your quiet time, 5-10 minutes tomorrow in your quiet time or the next opportunity, just what do you dream about for your church? That's vision. And then if you can bring a couple people together to talk about that, that's the vision. And again, I'm sure it's already in there. So, and will it become exactly as you think? No. I don't know. That exemplary model of American Catholic parish, right? It's not what we thought. I don't know what we thought it would be, but it's certainly not what Father Michael would thought it'd be. He would have probably thought it was like a choir and, all this tradition. It's fun, and men and boys choirs and organ music. That's what he would have thought it was going to be. And it's very, very different. So, and doing that well, but it might be different, but it's, again, just getting it out there, getting it there will start to help you then know it yourself, be more passionate about it, and then be able to share it with others.
Well, as we wrap up, I just think that vision that you wrote all of those years ago in 1997, that, you're modeling it. And now people get to come and learn from what just these few staff members went and did in Gettysburg and cast this vision. Now you are that exemplary example of American Catholic Church, and they get to come and learn from you, which, why wouldn't they? I think anybody who's questioning if they should come to the conference or not, I think the question is, why wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. No, it'll be again, amazing experience, and you'll walk away with a broader vision, more on fire for your work you do in the parish.
For sure. Well, Tom, thank you once again for joining us and pouring into the Rebuilt community. We're so grateful for you and everything that you and the team at Nativity have done. And thank you to our listeners. We will see you at the Rebuilt Conference, June 2nd and 3rd.